Joanna Reeves, and I'm chair and founder of Conservative Friends of Neurodiversity. And I'm having a chat today with Tony McGurk. Tony I met a little while ago over lunch. It was a political lunch, and we were there listening to a Secretary of State talking about his area. And then afterwards, when we were chatting, I told Tony about Conservative Friends of Neurodiversity. And as often happens, it turned out that there was a common interest in neurodiversity. So I'll let Tony introduce himself. Tony, tell us first of all what you do in life, in your day job.
My day job is I run two IT companies. I run a traditional IT company where we look after systems for a very, very big organization. And then I also have an eco IT company where we're developing eco solutions which are disruptive. We're trying to be disruptive and make a solution that will effectively bring recycling to the fore and get people to do the right thing. So there's a lot of behavioral science in it. There's lots of bits of AI. There's lots of bits to do with digital ledgers. But ultimately, we're basically trying to get people to do the right thing for the right reasons.
And how do you persuade people then to do the right thing for the right reasons?
It's a really interesting thing because people only respond for two reasons. Either I need to do it because I'm a good person and I want to help the environment.
Yeah.
Or greed. What's in it for me? Okay. If you're not going to give me anything, why should I bother doing it? And so we've been writing our systems or platform to actually work off those two triggers. And what our behavioral scientists tell us is that people only recycle for those two reasons, and that 20% of people will always do the right thing because they're the good guys.
Okay.
We all love the good guys. They're the guys who will pick rubbish off the street and put it into the bin and do all the right good stuff.
I'm amazed it's 20% actually.
20% will always do the wrong thing.
Okay.
Okay, and these are the guys who will throw the bag of rubbish out of the car window as they drive along.
Right.
Have no social responsibility whatsoever.
Okay.
60% of people can be influenced.
Uh-huh.
And what we're looking to do is to use technology to help influence people on the basis of they either want to do it for need or greed.
Okay, so hopefully 80% of people will end up doing the right thing once you've had your way with them.
Yep, and we'll all live in a much, much better place.
Well, here's to that. So what's your interest in neurodiversity? I'll let you explain that.
Okay, my interest is because we had the conversation, and I'm actually dyslexic.
Yep.
I didn't know I was dyslexic until I knew that my children were dyslexic.
Okay.
And I went to see a specialist teacher, and she said, "Oh, you're dyslexic though." And I said, "Am I?" And she said, "Oh, yes, you've got all the traits. Sit down and do this little test." "Oh, yeah, you're quite severely dyslexic."
So did that come as a shock?
It did come as a shock because ultimately I just thought I was thick at school.
Right.
Okay, so at school, I was the class clown.
Yep.
I was very good at history, which I now know the reason I was good at history is because most dyslexics have a very, very good memory because they don't like writing things down.
Oh, I see.
So they remember lots. So I was very, very good at history.
Okay.
And I could tell a really good joke.
Okay. So that must have really challenged the way you looked back on your childhood and your whole development, really, making that discovery later. And it's actually quite common, I think, for people currently to be discovering that they've got some sort of neurodiversity. ADHD is quite a common one to discover that people have a bit later in life. And late diagnosis is a real problem. So does it sort of challenge the way you look back over your school days?
I was very lucky in as much that I actually went to a church school.
Okay.
And because I went to a church school, it was a small school. So there was only 800 pupils.
Okay.
And because there was only 800 pupils, I did very well in that environment because I had a bit more time with the teachers.
So you were an individual and you were therefore treated as such.
Yeah.
Rather more than maybe if
I'd been, I had friends who went to the local comprehensive school. I mean, mine was a comp. They went to local comprehensive and they had 1,500, 1,700 children in the school.
Okay. Yes.
They were lost.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
lucky because there was only 800. I was a bit closer to the action.
Sure.
And one other thing which has just come into my head, in my primary school days, at my primary school, I was taught to use an italic pen. So I did cursive italic writing from a very early age. When I went to my secondary school, or comprehensive school as it was in those days, this came to the fore because I had really, really neat writing. My spelling was completely wrong, but my writing looked nice.
And do you think that if your writing looks nice, do you think that teachers look on you more kindly then? So I think they probably do, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Actually, what happened was that the deputy headmistress would, at the end of term, do all the certificates for everybody.
Yeah.
And found out that my writing was really nice because I had this lovely cursive writing with an italic pen. So she would get me into her office and I would do all of the certificates for everybody in the school. And so I would just copy them out.
Okay.
And so I was doing the calligraphy side, which meant I had exposure within the school to the teachers, which meant because the deputy headmistress was quite powerful, they were all willing to give me that little bit of extra help.
Okay, yeah, so the two things come from that. That fact that you've got support from someone powerful, but also you're being given confidence yourself and being told, yes, you are good at something here. Yeah. Because I think confidence is a huge thing that unleashes people's, at least their ability to have a real bash at something.
Yeah, confidence is key.
Yeah.
If you become confident, you will have a go.
Yes.
If you're always being knocked back, you eventually withdraw.
Yes.
And I always put dyslexics into two camps. You're either a bit of an extrovert and confident, or you're an introvert because you're not confident.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's a real tragedy for those people who withdraw into themselves and possibly sink away. So obviously you had something about you that drove you forwards in
I think because I was the class clown.
Right.
Because I was the class clown, I think it meant that I was everybody's friend.
Yeah.
And so that gives you confidence because you're a friend within your peer group. Yes. And I was also really good at football. And I was in the first team for football. And so that helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's anything that can give you a bit of confidence and a bit of a boost is going to help you.
Yes.
The fact that I couldn't, and I still can't to this day, spell sincerely.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter because that lovely, lovely man, Mr. Gates, who is also dyslexic, came along with a word processor, which meant that whenever I spell it wrong, he corrects it for me.
Yes, which is a fabulous thing. Although you have to be careful with that, don't you? I've had some times where I've sent emails with quite ridiculous sentences because it's been spell checked in the wrong direction, and I've said some quite ludicrous things to people.
You need to try Grammarly.
Inadvertently.
Try Grammarly.
Okay, I'll do that. So what about your children then? So your children are dyslexic, which is how you found out about your own neurodiversity.
So we initially found out that my eldest son was dyslexic through his primary school that he was at. We didn't know that my youngest son was dyslexic until we'd moved him out of that school. Now, for better or...
But did you know, sorry, I'm interrupting, did you know that he was dyslexic?
No, I just thought he was a difficult child.
Okay.
I thought he was a difficult child. And that's, like I was a difficult child, apparently.
Right.
I was lucky in some ways and unlucky in others. Okay, as a Conservative, I was unlucky because my father was quite high up in the Labour Party. And because of that, he thought that he could just send me to the local Labour Party person who would sort me out.
Yeah.
He didn't. And so we went to see the behavioural person at the local council who turned around and said, I have a budget of this much and I have to cover everything from Asperger's at this end all the way down to the naughty boy in the classroom at this end.
Right.
And your son sits about here, so you've got no chance.
Yeah.
And he actually said to me, if you want to do anything to help your child, you'll have to do it yourself.
Right.
So I took action.
Yep.
And I did. So I sold my house in West London, which I'd worked very hard to get.
Yep.
And I moved to Chipping Norton, or just outside Chipping Norton, when Chipping Norton was a nowhere place that nobody wanted to live in.
Right.
And how that place has changed. Done amazingly good for my house value, but it just happens to be being in the right place at the right time, I think.
Yeah.
So we put my son into a school that was recommended by his dyslexic teacher. I always remember not being able to spell does, and being taught that daddies often eat sweets is the way to remember it.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's how you remember things. And it was all to do with rhymes.
I've got a good one for necessary. Nearly every clown eats smoked salmon. Yuck. Was one that I learned at school.
It's great. See, it's all these things.
Yeah.
So and dyslexics have really good memories because, like I said, they don't write things down mostly.
Yeah.
They just try to remember. So that when you teach them a rhyme, they tend to remember it for. So my son went to this local Quaker school, which was a private school.
Yeah.
So we were lucky; we were able to use some of our money from the house sale, and then we put our youngest son in, and who was immediately diagnosed with dyslexic as well. In fact, even worse than my eldest son.
Okay.
My eldest son also has dyscalculia as well.
Right.
So he has double edge.
Yeah.
But.
And at this point, you didn't know, because you didn't know that you were dyslexic, you didn't know that your children were dyslexic. And so, yeah, this was a whole revelation. And presumably made their journey quite a bit easier than yours was.
A lot easier, because as a parent, all I wanted was for them to be happy at school.
Yes.
I didn't go in and think, my son's got to come out with 6 A levels or 4 O levels or whatever it was. I just said, I want them to be happy at school. And as long as they're happy at school, I will be happy.
Yeah.
Because I am a great believer in that you make your own luck.
Yep.
And if you work hard, you will get the rewards.
Yes. And there's that quote, isn't there? I can't remember who it's by, that the more I practiced, the luckier I became.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of luck does come from hard work. So
I left school with an O level in geography and an O level in art. I failed maths. I failed English. I have the lowest grade pass in arithmetic.
Okay.
And yet I run 2 companies.
Yes.
And I've been, I would say, reasonably successful.
Yes. And what do you, well, you've been more than reasonably successful, Tony. What do you attribute your success to? If you had to say to someone who was intent on believing that you have to be academic in order to succeed, what would you say to those people?
I would say you can make your own luck.
Yeah.
And I would say that, for instance, in my business, I have plenty of people come to me and want a job, and they've all got degrees and they've all got this and they've all got that, but they have no common sense.
Yes.
They have no personality.
Yeah.
Okay. And they have no drive.
Right.
And you can get all of those things if you're given permission.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all about being given permission. So I was given permission to do those things. Okay.
Yes.
And by permission, I mean somebody said I wasn't knocked back.
Yeah.
You know, it might not have been 100% correct. Maybe it was 90% correct, but I was given the reason to go back and try and get that extra 10%.
Right. Okay. And although your neurodiversity wasn't recognised when you were at school, you were obviously supported, presumably at home very much as well, and through school.
I wouldn't say I was supported at home. I think it's a case of, as a dyslexic, I developed reasonably good verbal skills.
Yeah. Okay.
And having reasonably good verbal skills means that you're already at an advantage.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not a shy flower.
No, you're not, are you?
I will come straight out with it, and I will tell people what I think.
Yeah.
And if the other thing is sending my children to a Quaker school was really interesting, because Quakerism is really interesting. They're not Quakers, obviously, but they went to Quaker school. And Quakerism is really interesting because it's all about consensus and fairness.
Okay.
So even now, my eldest son, who is, I think 35 now, coming up for 35, doing really well, went to university, did a double, great. He hates things when they're not fair.
Okay.
And he will point, and if he thinks that you are not being fair, he will tell you. And he will tell people in the streets if he doesn't think they're being fair.
Oh, interesting.
He has no fear.
Right.
And
and what sort of reaction does he get in the street if he tells someone they're not being fair?
Sometimes he'll get abuse.
Okay. What sort of things does he pick up on then?
He picks up on things where people are like queue jumping.
Oh,
Yeah, so somebody's trying to push somebody else out of the way to get into the queue. He won't stand for it.
Okay.
Everybody's in the queue. Everybody.
Oh, I'm all for that. Oh, good for him.
And he will actually call them out on it. He will call people out on things.
Okay.
It's really interesting. It does help that he's 6'4" and an ex-rugby football player,
That
so
would help.
it tends not to get picked on a lot.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting way of going about life.
Yeah.
And you know, even in his work life, he has no fear about going to his CEO and telling him what's wrong.
And I presume he goes about it in a, because obviously it's worked, say talking to the CEO, he will go about it in a way that does work, because not everyone would. Sometimes you can...
It's interesting. I often say to my eldest son, he would not get a job in the diplomatic corps.
I see.
But he does couch it in a way. So he's not a diplomat.
Right.
But he does tell you the truth.
Okay. Yeah. Does he know we're talking about him like this?
Probably not, and he'll be shocked. My youngest son, he is again very good verbally.
Yeah.
He actually works for my business in the eco business, and if I need something done, I will ask him to get it done because he is of the opinion that if I'm going to do something, it needs to be done, and I won't drop it until it is done.
Right.
Okay, so it's really good. He's actually very talented.
Yeah.
He will often do something.
Yeah.
He does it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
His biggest problem is he then gets bored.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. He at his school they had a little golf course.
Right.
The teacher said, "Oh, you're quite good at this," so they sent him off to do his PGA course, the youth PGA course. He got his gold award.
Yes.
Got the award, got given his gold badge, and went, "Oh, I've done that now." Didn't want to play golf anymore.
Done. Wow. So that's really getting a task done, ticking the box, onto the next thing. Yeah, and that's a real sort of driven personality, isn't it?
Yes. And so this week at work, we were doing something, and he needed an accreditation from an IT company.
Okay.
So he went, "Okay, I'll take the accreditation." Sat down, worked the accreditation through, got his pass.
Yeah.
Stuck the certificate on the wall and said, "Right, I've got the accreditation, move on."
Yeah.
And it's like, focus, go.
Yes. And then there are other personality types that are much more meandering. But yes, that direct, get it done, tick the box, and then I'm on my way.
I think he gets that from his mother.
Right.
She can be quite focused, whereas I'll go around the houses. She will just go straight to it.
Interesting. Well, I talk about neurodiversity as bringing challenges and joys. So I think that's obviously one of the joys that comes with it. And I suppose to finish, we were talking about wisdom, weren't we?
Yes.
And you had a really great quote about a tomato, a humble tomato, bringing us a great example of wisdom.
I picked up this the other day and something I was reading, and what I read was that knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in your fruit salad. And I just thought, that's brilliant, because a dyslexic would know that. Yes,
and someone who had studied and learnt and really gone into what a tomato is might well put it in their fruit salad.
Yeah, because they've read. Well, people on if you're taught that it's a fruit, you just go, "Oh, it's a fruit. I'll put it in the fruit salad."
Yeah.
Whereas, actually, you'd question it if you were a dyslexic.
Yes.
And dyslexics, and being one, I can say this: we often come up with an answer.
Yeah.
But we don't know how we got the answer.
Yes.
So for instance, in my eco business, I've come up with an answer.
Yeah.
And now I've got a team of people who are working it backwards now to come up with how. How did you get to that answer, Tony? How come you know this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I just do, and I can't tell you why.
Yes.
Because I don't know.
The innate wisdom of the dyslexic.
Indeed.
Well, look, this has been really fascinating talking to you. I've enjoyed it so much. And
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.